So February is here and it's bringing a solid mix of new games across horror, action, RPGs and racing, with some of the biggest franchises making their next move. In this video, we are running through games launching this month and getting a feel for what each one is trying to do and which ones might really open up once people get their hands on. Let's jump right in. So starting on the list, we have Resident Evil Requiem, which releases on the Feb 27th on PS5, Xbox Series X and S and PC. Resident Evil Requiem already feels like one of those games where you never really feel comfortable. Like even when nothing's still happening, it still feels tense. It's like Capcom really wants to mess with your nerves again. So you play as Leon again, but this doesn't look like he's running the show. Every encounter feels like that moment where you stop and think, alright, do I deal with this now or do I turn off my PC and come back tomorrow for it? Everything about the atmosphere feels slower and heavier, like the game wants you to hesitate, and if this is how it starts off, I'm really curious how it messes with you later on once you think you have figured out how it plays. And on number 2 in our release calendar is Nioh 3, releasing on Feb 6th on the PS5 and PC. The goal feels same right away: survive the fight, learn from your mistakes and don't get sloppy. This is not a game that lets you switch your brain off. Story-wise, it's pulling you back into that dark, myth-heavy world, but it doesn't feel like the story is a main hook here. It's more about what happens in each encounter. The moment-to-moment gameplay looks fast and demanding, with timing, positioning and stamina management doing most of the heavy work. The atmosphere feels intense and serious, like every fight matters. What looks new this time is how much sharper everything feels. Enemies push mystics quicker and combat looks less forgiving. Looks like Nioh 3 is something to really look forward to this February. Up next, we have High on Life 2. The goal feels less about precision and more about chaos. Shoot things, explore weird places, and let the game talk back to you the whole time. Story-wise, it drops you back into that absurd sci-fi setup, but moment to moment, it looks a lot more fluid. You're running, gunning, swapping between talking weapons, and now you've got a skateboard that lets you move around way faster and keep fights moving instead of stopping and starting. The atmosphere is loud, ridiculous, and what's interesting this time is how much smoother everything looks. The big question though is whether all the movement and humor stays fun once the novelty wears off, because if it does, this could stick around a lot longer than the first one. And up next, we have REANIMAL, releasing on the Feb 13th on the PS5, Xbox Series and the PC. So REANIMAL puts you in the shoes of a brother and a sister trapped on a twisted island, and the goal isn't just survival, it's finding and saving your missing friends. If you've played or survived games like Little Nightmares, this is going to feel familiar in the best way. You're moving carefully through hostile environments, staying quiet, solving puzzles, and trying not to get noticed by things that feel way bigger and way stronger than you. The atmosphere is kind of unsettling, like the previous games, with a lot of tension coming from sound, silence, and what you can't see. It feels like one of those games where every step matters, and I'm really interested to see how far it pushes that fear as the story unfolds this time. So our next game popped out of nowhere on the release calendar, and it's called Styx Blade of Greed, and it releases on the Feb 19th on the PS5, Xbox Series S, X, and PC. So if you've played the previous version of Styx, this is the second part, and you still play as Styx again, a goblin assassin who survives by staying unseen, stealing what he needs, and never taking a fair fight. So story-wise, it's set in the same grim fantasy world where Styx is usually caught between bigger powers and forced to outsmart them instead of confronting them directly. Moment to moment, it's all about sneaking through vertical spaces, sticking to shadows, setting traps, and only striking enemies when they have no idea. Let's see if the game truly lets you play like a ghost the whole way through, or it eventually forces you into fighting when things get messy. And now My Hero Academia All's Justice, which releasing on the Feb 6th on PS5, Xbox Series X, S, and on the PC. With All's Justice, the goal feels pretty straightforward. Jump into the My Hero world and let the quirks do the work. This one isn't trying to slow you down, it wants you moving, reacting, and chaining abilities as fast as possible. Story-wise, it pulls from the My Hero universe, but it doesn't feel like it's here to over-explain anything. The focus here is clearly on the fights. You're jumping into flashy, high-energy battles, landing big supers, managing space, and trying to stay on top of the chaos once everything starts popping off. The atmosphere is loud and over-the-top, very anime, very confident in its style. What stands out here is the pace. It looks fun and explosive early on, but the real test is how it feels once players stop button mashing and starts playing seriously. That's usually where games like this either finds their depth or fall apart. And next we have a very familiar face in this game. It's called Mario Tennis Fever, which releases on the Feb 12th on Nintendo Switch. So Mario Tennis Fever feels like it's going straight back to that pick up and play energy. You're jumping into matches, shots feel snappy, and everything's built around momentum rather than long setups. You've got that familiar Mario cast, each with their own strength, and matches turn quickly into these chaotic back and forths where timing and position matter just as much as the flashy specials. It looks easy to get into, but there's clearly room for players who want to slow things down and really master it. This feels like the kind of game that starts fun and only gets better once players settle in and starts pushing it competitively. Up next, we have Tokyo Xtreme Racer, releasing on the Feb 26th on the PS5, Xbox Series XS, and PC. Tokyo Xtreme Racer feels like a traditional racing game and more like you're stepping into an underground Tokyo scene. It's building a reputation on Tokyo's highway, one driver at a time. You're an unknown driver hitting the express highway at night, challenging other racers, learning who's who, and slowly climbing the ladder through rival encounters instead of championships. It's all about high-speed duels, reading your opponent, managing boosts, and knowing when to push and when to back off. The environment is beautiful, neon lit and tense, especially with the traffic and long stretches of road between you and the next mistake. This could feel very different from modern races if the game nails the sense of progression and identity. And the last game on our list, we have Star Trek Voyager Across the Unknown, releasing on the Feb 18th on the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S and the PC. This one's for people who actually enjoy the Voyager part of Star Trek, being lost, figuring out things, and relying on crew more than firepower. The game is set comfortably slow, where you are talking to crew members, making decisions, exploring unknown spaces, and dealing with situations where there isn't always a clear answer. It has that classic Star Trek pacing where tension comes from uncertainty and consequences, not explosions, and it feels like the kind of game that quietly pulls you in over time, especially once the crew dynamics and choices start stacking up. So there you have it. That's the new games landing in February 2026, from horror, action to racing and laid-back adventures. If you want to keep up with how these actually land, I'll be doing weekly breakdowns and release alerts as they roll out, especially if something big gets missed. Stick around for those and let's see how this month really plays out.